So, welcome to this session of strategic financial management. We have seen the first part, that is relevance model, that has been given, first one by Walter and second one by Gordon, where both of them tells that deciding on how much should be kept as dividend, how much should be declared as dividend, and how much the company has to keep in the form of retention ratio. Now, where Walter has considered only this, Gordon has also considered later in his revised study the risk and uncertainty, and he has given the theory of bird in the hand and the dividend discount growth model. Now, speaking about one more, that is irrelevance theory. Now, speaking about the irrelevance theory, it is given by Monticelli and Miller. So, Monticelli and Miller theory is proposed by the two persons who has been there in the name, that is Franco Monticelli and Merton Miller. They have given this theory in the year 1961. Now, speaking about this theory, this approach tells that the firm's dividend policy will never be affected, or does there is any effect on the price of the firm's stock or on the cost of capital because of the decision how much should be paid as dividend, how much should be retained in the company. And the assumption that the Modigliani and the Miller takes into consideration is, the first one is perfect capital market. That is, a perfect capital market is undoubtedly is an idealistic situation. Now, Modigliani and Miller consider that the firm operates in such a market in which all the investors are rational and the information is very much freely available to all. And the second assumption is that regarding tax. First is there is no tax at all, and if at all there is any kind of tax, then there shall be no discrimination. But this is not actual the case. This is the only assumption. Even though when we consider in Indian capital market, even though dividend that has been earned in by the domestic company is not taxable by the dividend earner, but it is always taxable in the hands of the company. So this also is an assumption. The third assumption is regarding the fixed investment policy. Now, it is necessary to assume that all the investment should be financed through only equity. Now, it never takes into consideration what might happen if the company takes into its capital structure the debt as a capital source. And the third one, the next assumption is that there is neither any flotation cost, there is no any transaction cost. But not only in a capital market, these two are definitely present, but these two vary from country to country in the real situation. And the last assumption, that the risk of uncertainty does not exist, whereas the risk of uncertainty does always exist in the capital market. Now, what this hypothesis tells, that the market value of the equity shares of a firm always depends only on its earning power, and therefore the matter in which the earnings are divided as to what is to be given, what is to be retained, actually does not matter. What matters in the market value of the firm is how much has it earned. Now, after earning, what you do? Whether you reinvest it, whether you divide it, does not actually affect the market value of the firm is what they are telling. Now, this hypothesis is primarily based on the arbitrage argument. Now, speaking about this arbitrage argument, we even had in the capital structure theory. Now, through the arbitrage process, hypothesis always discusses how the value of the firm remains same whether the firms pay dividend or not. For that, they have taken the formula as P naught is equal to P1 plus D1 divided by 1 plus KE, where P naught represents the price in the beginning of the period and P1 represents price at the end of the period, D1 represents dividend at the end of the period, 1 remains constant, K is nothing but cost of capital, rate of equity capitalization, discounted rate or internal rate of return. Now, because this particular theory tells that the dividend decisions are irrelevant, one thing we should remember is that the value of the shares shall remain same at any point of time. As per hypothesis, the value of the firm will remain unchanged due to dividend decision. Now, this can be computed with the help of the following formula, where VF or NP naught is equal to N plus delta N P1 minus I plus E divided by 1 plus KE, where the VF is simply an abbreviation of value of the firm in the beginning of the period. Now, it can also be NP naught, where N represents number of shares in the beginning of the period. So, simply when you compare the earlier formula in this, NP naught is nothing but you have number of shares in the beginning of the period, you have the value of the shares in the beginning of the period. When you multiply both, what you get is VF or the value of the firm. So, value of the firm or NP naught is equal to N plus delta N into P1 minus I plus E. Now, delta N is nothing but it represents the number of shares which is issued to raise the funds that is required. P1 represents price at the end of the period. I represents the amount that is necessary for the investment and E represents total earnings during the period. Now, when we go through down this PDF, now for the understanding how this equation has been formed, they have given information which is not necessary to by heart but only for your understanding purpose. Now, what the equation that you have to remember is this one, where NP naught is equal to N plus delta N P1 minus I plus KE divided by 1 plus KE, or this particular formula what has been given. The rest is just for you to understanding how it has been derived into. Now, there are both advantages of hypothesis and the limitations for hypothesis. Now, speaking about advantages of hypothesis, it is said that it is logically consistent. The second one is it always provides a satisfactory framework on dividend policy with the concept of arbitrage process. Now the limitation is said that validity of various assumptions that are being made here is always questionable. Now, whenever there is uncertainty in the market, then this model may not be valued under such a condition. Now, for further explanation of hypothesis, it has been in detail given in your handout. The handout which is in the form of handwritten form. Please do go through that for more information. Or if at all you need a further explanation, do let me know. I would record it and I would post it to all of you. Now speaking about the illustration of the problem, do go through this. AB Engineering Limited belongs to a risk class for which the capitalization rate is 10%. Now it currently has outstanding 10,000 shares which is selling at rupees 100 each. The firm is contemplating the declaration of a dividend of rupees 5 per share at the end of the current financial year, and it is expected to have a net income of rupees 1 lakh and has a proposal for making new investment of rupees 2 lakh. Calculate the value of the firm when dividends are not paid and when dividends are paid. Okay. Now speaking about this, the first step is that the first thing that we have to consider is there are two different situations. One where they have paid the dividend and one where they have not paid the dividend. And going through the problem, they have given the capitalization rate, that is KE, which stands at 10%. Now currently the company is having 10,000 outstanding shares and each of the shares value is rupees 100. So the company as of now can be valued at 10 lakh. The firm is contemplating the declaration of dividend. That is, they have decided to declare dividend of rupees 5 per share at the end of the current financial year. And the company expects to have a net income of rupees 1 lakh and it has a proposal for making new investment of 2 lakh. And we are expected to calculate the value of the firm when dividends are not paid and when dividends are paid. So first we shall consider the value of the firm when dividends are not paid. So the price at the end of the period KE is equal to 10%, P0 is equal to 100, D1 they have given 0 because dividend here declared is for the end of the, if we go through the question, they have given the information regarding dividend, but they are being very specific that this dividend is at the end of the current financial year. So D1, which represents the dividend at this particular year, is not considered, not because they have given at the end of the current financial year, but then here we are considering the dividends are not being paid. So the formula to first we'll have to know the P0, that is it is given by P1 plus D1 divided by 1 plus KE, where the current price of the shares we do not know, but the price at the beginning of the period we know it is rupees 100, which has been given in the question where they have said that there are 10,000 outstanding shares which are selling at rupees 100. So D1 definitely according to the situation it stands at 0, 1 is constant. KE cost of capital they have given which is to be 10%. So 10 divided by 100 is 0.10. So the P1 would be 110. So the next thing that we have to do is we have to calculate the funds that is necessary for the investment. The earnings of the company they have given 1 lakh. Regarding dividend, the company is not paying dividend at all. So the dividend distribution stands at nil. The funds that is available for the company for investment is rupees 1 lakh. the total investment would be in total rupees 2 lakh. So balance of the funds that is necessary is 2 lakh minus 1 lakh, which is the company still needs 1 more lakh. And now the third step we shall calculate. Now if the company has to get this 1 lakh, how shall it raise the fund? So the number of shares required is funds requirements, that is 1 lakh, price at the end of the year, that is P1 which we calculated, that is 110. So the calculation of the value of the firm is n plus delta n, P1 minus I plus E divided by 1 plus KE. N is 10,000 which has been given, that is number of shares. Delta N is what is the extra amount that is necessary, that is 1 lakh divided by 110. Then we have P1, that is price of the shares currently, that is 1 lakh. I represents the amount necessary, which is 2 lakh plus E, which represents total earnings during the period, which is given in the question to be 1 lakh. 1 is constant and KE we have 10%. So the value of the firm is 10 lakh. So moving further, we shall take the situation 2 where the value of the firm when dividends are paid. So all other things remaining same. Here since dividend are paid, we can consider the information that is given in the question where D1 is equal to rupees 5. So when we do that, the present value of the shares would be 105, and according to that, here the earnings would be 1 lakh. The dividend that is paid will come up to 50,000. That is because we have 10,000 of shares, and on each of the share the company is paying rupees 5. So the dividend distributed shall be 50%. Out of the earnings if the dividend is distributed, the funds available for investment shall be 50,000. 1 lakh minus 50,000. The total investment that is necessary is rupees 2 lakh. So the balance of the funds that is necessary would go up from 1 lakh to 1 lakh 50,000 when we compare the two situations where the company has paid dividend, where the company has not paid the dividend. So the number of shares required to be issued for balance shall be 1 lakh 50,000 divided by 105. Instead of simplifying it, it has been directly taken in the formula. So the when you calculate the value of the firm, when you simplify it, it again stands at 10,000. So this proves that according to the hypothesis, what matters is the earnings of the company. According to it, what is irrelevant is how this earning shall be split definitely does not matter. Now, that is the three main theory that has been given for you all under dividend policy. But then when we go through this PDF, there are still more information regarding two other models where they have taken into consideration the traditional model, which is two traditional models. The one is Graham and Dodd model. Now, according to this model, what Graham and Dodd consider is that the share market price usually that is considerably has more weight on dividends than the retained earnings. So, to speak about this, they have said it in the way of P is equal to M D plus E by 3, where P represents the market price per share, D represents the dividend per share, E represents earnings per share. and 3 is constant. Speaking of M, it is a multiplier. Now this multiplier is always decided by this gram and Dodd is one of the taking into consideration some of the elements. So this M changes from situation to situation and from company to company. Now, this is a traditional model which is not necessary for you in solving the practical problems, but if at all you get a theory, might be if you know this, if you know the formula, you can always use it in expanding your theory. So the earnings per share of the company is rupees 30, the dividend payout ratio is 60%, and the multiplier that has been given is 2. And when you put all the information in the formula, that is P, you can find out the market price per share. M is multiplier which stands at 2. D they have given, that is 60%, and you have the earnings per share. When you have earnings, when you have dividend payout ratio, when you multiply that, we get the D. E they have given directly 30 and 3 is constant. So the market price of the share would be rupees 56. The next information is regarding the equity shares of M Limited Company, where they have given the market price 58.33, dividend per share they have given rupees 5, multiplier they have given 7. So according to the Gram and Dodd approach, we have asked to find the dividend policy. According to this dividend policy, we are asked to find out the earnings per share. And when you see the formula, price per share has been given, that is 58.33. The multiplier they have given to be 7. Now the dividend per share of the D they have given 5. EPS has not been given and 3 is a constant. When you put all this element in the formula and when you use simple math, 58.33 is equal to 7, 5 plus E divided by 3. When you simplify it, we get 105 plus 7E is equal to 175, or it can also be 7E is equal to 175 minus 105. And when you simplify, the EPS shall be rupees 10. Now, Graham and Dodge model, there is one more model which is given by Linters. Now, speaking about Linters model, it has two parameters. That is, first one is the target payout ratio and the second one is the spread at which the current dividends are adjusted to the target. Now, this particular model, this was especially done on the basis of the corporate manager interviews that were conducted by him during the 1950s. So when he, did the interview, when he considered all those things, he had made several assumptions. The first one is the firm will always have a long-term dividend payout ratio. Now they maintain a fixed dividend payout over a long term. Now mature companies with stable earnings may have high payouts and growth companies usually have low payouts. Now the reason for this, you know it in terms. Now, the second assumption is that when it comes to managers, they will always be concerned regarding how the dividend changes than the company not paying dividend at all. Now, the third assumption is dividend changes follow changes in long run sustainable earnings. Now, the last assumption is regarding the managers who are always reluctant to the effect dividend changes that may have to be reversed. Now, under Linters model, what happens is the dividend that shall be paid in the current year shall always depend on the current year earnings and the last year's dividend. And therefore, the formula goes D1 is equal to D0 plus EPS into target payout minus D0 into AF. Now, D1 is definitely dividend in the year 1, D0 is dividend in the year 0 or the earlier year, EPS is earnings per share, and you have something called as target payout minus D0. Then you have AR, AF, or which is called as adjustment factor or speed of adjustment. Now, here the illustration has been given, that is given the last year's dividend is rupees 9.80, the speed of adjustment is 45%, target payout ratio is 60%, and EPS for the current year is rupees 20. Now, compute current year's dividend using Linters model. Now, the Linter model is D1 is equal to D0 plus EPS into target payout ratio minus D0 into adjusting factor. Now, D0 is 9.80, EPS is 20, target payout ratio is 60%, and D0 is 9.8 and adjusting is 45%, that is nothing but 45 by 100. So, D1 when you simplify everything would be 10.79 rupees. Now, there is some of the criticisms for Linters model. Now, it is said that this particular model never evaluates the market price of the share. Now, the second criticism is regarding the adjustment factor. Now, this adjustment factor is an arbitrary number and it is not at all based on any specific criteria or methods. Now, when we saw 5 different models, but the last two, that is Linters model and Grom's and Dodd model, is only for your understanding purpose, knowledge purpose, or for you all to help in doing your theory. What is important for you is the first 3 theories what we discussed regarding Walter model, Gordon model, and hypothesis. The Walter model and Gordon model are relevance theory, which tells dividend decisions are important, and hypothesis is irrelevant model, which tells that what is important is how much the company earns. Based on what it earns, the price of the shares depends. How you divide this earnings does not actually matter. And the last one thing that you have in this chapter is regarding the stock splits. Now, stock split or splitting stock is nothing but you have one share, you divide it into many. That is called as stock split. Now, you have one share which is worth of rupees 5. Now, if at all the company decides it into 5 shares of rupees 100, then it is called as stock split or splitting of shares. Now, it is one of the things which is used by the company, which especially it used to regulate the prices of the share. That is, there are chances that sometimes because because the way it is expanding, the way it is doing a good business, sometimes that there are chances that the share price might go beyond a limit. So, what happens when it goes beyond a limit is it becomes less tradable in the market. So, during that time, the company decides to split its stock. For that example, there might be a company whose share price might increase from 5 to rupees 10,000 over the years. No, when that happens, it might go out of the hands of the investor to invest so much. So, during such times, the company decides that it shall go in for splitting the shares. That is called as share split. Now, this is a small set of information that has been given. Now, the advantage of stock split is that it makes the shares affordable to the small investors. So when the number of shares increases, then there are chances that the number of shareholders also increase, and hence there is potentiality for investment might also increase. Now there are some of the limitations. The first one is definitely the additional expenditure. Now this process of stock split is not free of cost. Definitely it will be having a lot huge expenditure attached to it. Now there are chances that when the share prices become low, it might attract speculators or even short-term investors. Now this neither the speculators nor the short-term investors are generally preferred by company. Now, when you go further down this PDF, you will find many other illustrations. There are almost 10 of the illustration that has been given. Now, all these are easy to understand. Please do go through that, which might be helpful for you all for your examination. You have any doubt, you can ask. Thank you, class, for your patience listening. You can leave the meeting for the day. Whatever information I have to share, I shall let you all know in your WhatsApp group.